All right. Elite Coaching Academy podcast. I'm really excited for this episode. So, Dr. Alex Ott, I've had 339 doctors on my podcast now. And I have to admit something to you. Um, I've never been nervous to talk to any of them before because I feel like I can hang in any conversation. But man, you're a smart dude and you have a lot of stuff figured out. I mean, you have a PhD in molecular biology. You're very well versed in nutritional biochem. You're known as a botanist cocktail maker. What is that?
That's a good question. I've had a few, I don't know how you want to call it, professions in my life. Normally, don't really call them professions. It's just part of life, but they tend to make an income at that sort of time in your life. Before kids, I was a storyboard artist. I went to art school. I did my 2 PhDs, which was the biochemistry and molecular biology in Germany, at a very cool school that Gauss went to as well, the mathematician. It was founded in 1415, and it's I come from a very beautiful city that's very old, all castles and cobblestones, and they have some great schools. I did not use these credentials for most of my life until I was getting extremely sick, and until I was consulting for other biotech companies, including NASA's Space Food Systems Laboratory in Houston. I worked with them for 14 years now, 6 years actively spiderwebbing astronaut gut profiles together, and before they went into long space missions, specifically lunar Mars phases 2A and 3A of the Mars Life Support Test Project. And I realized quickly that there is no such thing as being completely healthy out there. And I sort of infused this knowledge into, what I learned about microbes, the gut, your immune system, and also as a perfumer, because I've created a few fragrances for some big brands as well, to infuse that into one thing and make cocktails with it. And that's why people, when they Google or when they try to find out about me, everything that pops up is drinks. And I kind of like it this way, because what I do now is, you sort of have to stay under the radar by curing illness and treating and healing. You can't say that out loud because it's frowned upon to cure people. You have to profit from them always. So I did not agree with it. So I started doing experiments in New York City when I moved to New York in '99 to create a drink menu for a really famous restaurant chain. It was called Sushi Samba back then. My first drink menu was in Paris in '95, which was Buddha Bar. And that turned into a big hotel group and nightclub and franchise. And I saw really quickly how having this kind of skill in infusing flavors, which is our oldest sense, scent, is much more important than anything else on the planet, and how that works in the brain. So from olfactory neuroscience, mix that with a little bit of biochemistry and, and the knowledge of how the human body works, specifically how it works on drugs like alcohol. I would create cocktails that would enable you not to have a hangover. And that was new for people. So like, well, hold on a second, At the same time, I worked for a company called Mercy Nutraceuticals. And we developed specifically a product, which was this little can here.
Okay.
They're said even on the label, hangover prevention. It was the world's first. We had it patented, and I still make it for certain personalities as edibles or powders or sachets. And it was a humongous thing. It was all over the world. We prevented the Asian flush with it, the red cheeks when you drink alcohol.
Yeah.
We prevented the glutamine rebound, which is when you consume a good amount of alcohol. You go to bed and then your body wakes you up after 2-3 hours. Although you slept like a baby before, and then you're like, why am I awake all of a sudden? And that's your body telling you, hey, tapping you on the shoulder, hey, you're dying, by the way, so you need to wake up and do something about this. And this is our, emergency alert system when we consume carcinogenic substances. And most people didn't even know what a hangover was, but we were able to prevent it. And not only that, but you could also mix all these different spirits together, from bourbon and gin and wine and sake, and feel great the next day, because we would infuse these drinks with natural ingredients that together had enough amino acids and vitamins and antioxidants to literally enable you not to have a hangover, even if you had a bottle of bourbon and tequila in the same night. And it
That
was,
is
advertised. And we didn't enable people to drink more alcohol. That was not my purpose. Was to, just in case you had enough. So we made low voltage drinks, instead of putting 10 ounces of booze in there, so people can get their bang for their buck. We concentrated more on the health and wellness of our guests, to say, like, why shouldn't they be drinking 5-6 hours? Calling this their second living room, because it was all filled with regulars and celebrities, and it was a great atmosphere in there, nothing arrogant or anything. The food was amazing. 70% our clientele was female, 30% were guys. So everybody loved going there. And
that's a good ratio. 7 out of 10 being women. That's a great ratio.
They had a good visual marketing campaign, because they would keep everything to yellow, orange, and red, which in your brain makes you hungry as well.
Oh, does it? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The colors orange and red make you feel hungry.
Orange, red, yellowish tones, they tend to increase your appetite. And we would have little secret shots that were on the house as well, for people who kind of like kept the space of the bar up. We wanted them to order food, because our managers pressed us to, like, hey, this guy needs to order something. He's been here for a couple of hours. We would give them, olfactory shots that had aromatic herbs inside, like a pinch of curry and clementine, pan, citrus. And 30 seconds later, they would ask for the menu, because they would all of a sudden produce more gastric juices. So these were little tricks that I would implement into the restaurant industry and hotel industry, because we would walk in there and say, like, hey, double your hotel, you make $28 million less every year because of late checkout. Late checkouts is 90% of why people check out in the hotel is hangover related. So we went in there and said, like, hey, would you like to get those $20 million back? And they let us do whatever they wanted, put little tiny elixir bottles in their mini fridges, or created their, drink me last cocktail. But I would specialize in mood cocktails to wrap this whole cocktail thing up for you. So you just read a one-line description, similar to the menu that's on the wall back there. It's called cognitive friction. It says, humans get better when we engage with our differences. This elixir is meant to stimulate the brain chemicals that make you want to connect with other humans, talk about things that matter, and feel empathy for people you don't know. And those would be our, one-line descriptions. We wouldn't put any labels in there. We wouldn't put any brand names in there, because obviously people, now they did care if you drank a Grey Goose or a Kettle One or whatever. It's all the same thing. It's flavorless, odorless, tasteless, distilled 5 times. It's worth $2, and it's hyped up with marketing. So if you know these things, you're basically just like, oh, we don't need to take these big brands that promise us $100,000 just because our alcohol's in the well. We would basically save $200,000 by developing our own vodka brand, like Svedka vodka is a vodka brand that I developed. So US biggest vodka brand now, because it was flavored by a professional. It was flavored by a really good flavor chemist with no high fructose corn syrups in there. We used an artichoke extract that's 3,000 times sweeter than sucrose. So you can mix it with the artificial stuff, but you could also mix it with fresh ingredients. So we would say, like, hey, don't take Absolute's money or something, whatever they want to give you, because the managers, especially bar managers, they always look at the dollar signs. I would basically bring it to them. We're like, hey, if you don't take them, you save $200,000, and that's how Svedka made a big impact. That's how they became the biggest brand out there, not just because of the great flavor, but also because of the marketing. They say, like, hey, drinking's for grown-ups. That's all it is. That's how we do our campaign. And then they paid Stan Winston from Hollywood, the creature maker, multiple Academy Awards. They paid him $500,000 to create that fembot that you see, associated with the Svedka vodka. And then they chose a Czech model to put the face on her and paid her. And then we basically made it our fembot for the next few years, saying, like, hey, this is the vodka of 2033. So it was a great campaign. And shortly after we had all these drink menus done, I started to create my own business for consulting for different menus where I would go in and say, hey, there's ingredients that are dangerous in your cocktail. And people were like, what are you talking about? This is a classic drink. I was like, yeah, it was invented 150 years ago. But again, we know a lot more about health now than we do
Yeah.
150 years ago. And the whole handlebar mustache and suspender mixology thing didn't do it for me, because either you know chemistry or you don't. And you can make up a drink menu for a restaurant that makes 70% of all their income with booze by an amateur, you know. So
Yeah.
there was a big article that was in the New York Times. It was called "The Sorcerer of Shaken and Stirred," where they massively misquoted me. But again, it got me a really
I
great
did
book.
read that article about you.
It's a really good article, except they forgot to mention two
The New
words.
York Times misquoted somebody?
Oh, they loved it because I called them up and I
Must
was
be the
like,
first
please.
time.
And he's a friend of mine. You know, he's a great food writer too. Excellent food writer. He worked for, many, many amazing magazines too. But he said, Alex, I'm not going to fix it because it's going to create a shitstorm of, criticism. And I was like, I don't like that. People like me in the city, you know. So after that
Yeah.
article, 200,000 bartenders that hated my ass. And I was really upset about that. But,
Wow.
after getting a chance to actually walk into their bars at night and explain to them, just have a conversation with me for 5 minutes, and you know what this article was about. I sort of, saved this whole thing again. But it was new for people that you could make drinks that would allow your body to naturally boost your glutathione levels, which is your biggest antioxidant ever, And if you can do that
Right.
daily, you won't get sick, you won't get the flu, you won't get sniffles, you won't get, any respiratory illnesses. And people quickly caught on. They became regulars. They drank there every day. They did never have a hangover, even mixing things together. It's different now that when you walk across the street, to another jazz club, and then all of a sudden you drink something, a Red Bull with, I don't know, all these officially
Whatever the heck is in
flavored
those.
things. And then they would come back and then they're like, hey, I do have a hangover. And I was just like, well, okay, it only goes to if you actually follow this, the menu. But yeah, I'm still doing this. Twice a year, I still do the menus for the Met Gala or the Academy Awards. I stopped doing because that's the most unorganized event in the world. They would literally wait till the day off to purchase the ingredients that they had on paper for like 6 months. So I decided not to go with them anymore. But and then we do something with Massimo Bottura and Alex Atala and Mauro Colagreco and Antonio Bashur, four best chefs. I mean, there's no such thing as best chefs in the world, but four of the most well-known ones at least. And that's an event called Once Upon a Kitchen, where they have me set up a little edible rainforest where people can pick out things and then feel different ways, like a lot of empathogenic substances that I will also talk about while we're here. So the cocktail thing took off, and I've made about 300 drink menus, including the chain.
Wow.
So
let me ask, if you're going to go out and have a night on the town, have some drinks, are you going to pre-plan based off of looking up their cocktail menus, or are you going to make and take your own um, set of supplements before you go out to negate any long-term effect and hangover the next day?
you can do it during and you can do it before bedtime. Before bedtime is the most important thing. Um, I just want to finish up what a hangover really is.
Oh,
Because
yes, please.
I always
Sorry.
get carried away because I know you want to talk about everything.
Yeah,
So
this is fantastic.
the hangover is something that it's basically a term called Visalgia, Veisalgia, and that is basically when you. This is a 300-year-old bottle of gin, right? It was the label here has actually female complaints.
Wow.
It says so. It was a PMS cure back then already, 300 years ago. So this is something I
PMS?
usually use. Yeah, this was for female complaints because gin back then pretty much contained every herb, and that's where we're going to close the circle here. Contains herbs that mimic hormones in female bodies, and because obviously they're not only completely different creatures, but also chemically very, very different from us. So having a drink on the menu that always entails a PMS cure is one of the biggest. Actually, it's my most famous and my most sold cocktail out there. It's called the Fountain, and it is a beautiful conglomerate of ingredients that is gin-based. It also works without the booze, but it's gin-based with white cranberry, with Persian cucumbers, with snow lotus, levigated pearl powder, which contains calcium and magnesium, which makes the cocktail also pearlescent. And then it gets this beautiful cucumber tulip that's hand cut that, you know, is an edible fruit origami on there. And I've been selling this drink for 30 plus years now. And nobody ever takes it off the menu. Buddha Bar still has all my drinks from, you know, 30 years ago, because before they met me, they made about 600,000 euros with cocktail sales. Now they make $7.5 million a year with cocktails.
You 12x them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy what happens. And you can see that with events, you know, when we do big events or charity parties for like Scott Harrison's Charity Water or Petra Nemkova's Happy Hearts Fund, you know, they always had me do these drinks where people like Patron and LVMH would just give me the booze and say, like, we're not even worried about making cocktails when you're part of the event. We're just going to give you all of our alcohol. You create the menu and we'll trust you. You know, that's how they did it. And I love doing events like this, having carte blanche to just go and say, like, okay, now I'm going to do this. Since it's a silent auction, I'm going to use ingredients that make people more spend, right?
Yeah.
So Scott wanted to raise $4 million for just 3,500 people that night, you know, and he went over, you know, at the end of the night just because of the drinks. Wow. And that was kind of like a game changer where I applied this into drink menus. And I say, how would you like to quadruple your revenue by serving people healthy drinks? You can actually say that. Healthy drinks, even if they contain alcohol, just not as much as a regular, you know, vodka martini. And then you go in and prevent your hangover. And now we come to the final part of everything, which is how do you prevent a hangover? First, you need to know how it is, what it is, and what's involved. So when you drink alcohol, no matter if it's beer, wine, or spirits, you metabolize it into multiple ingredients. Two, most importantly, you know, ethanol, the fun stuff, when people start dancing and getting phone numbers and, you know, having fun. And the second one is called acetaldehyde or acetaldehyde, which is the number one cancer killer in cigarettes. So to your body, smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol, no matter if it's just a beer, is the same thing. It produces a carcinogen, which causes cancer 100%, and they'll obviously put that onto every bottle, and by next year have a warning label on it, obviously without the photos. But people now know that it causes cancer 100%. So drinking something on a daily basis, although, you know, you don't consider yourself an alcoholic in New York City when you drink every single day, you know, 10 cocktails every day for everyone, it's normal. I'm not an alcoholic. You know, my bottle of wine is $8,000. I'm not an alcoholic, you know. It doesn't matter how expensive these things are and what label is on it. They all do the same to you. They kill you. And I've had my share of alcohol. You know, there were years leading up to 2015 or so where I would drink just because of the people I hung out with. You know, I would tour with the Kings of Leon to get them off of certain things and, you know, put them on something else. Or the Gossip Girl crew, you know, like every one of them was like my little child that I took care of at private parties and would say, like, this is how you not die because of all the drugs that you're on and all the alcohol you drink, you know, and the fact that you have to, you know, read your script by 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Always blew my mind how these young people could do that. But, you know, I would educate people about interactions, and that's what we did for drink menus. We went in and said, like, you have caffeine and tequila and cordial bitter in the same drink. That enables your liver to die 3 times as quick, confuse your central nervous system. And since all of them are diuretics, you're going to be so dehydrated. It's not just a problem, you know, because of cancer or liver failure, but like you're going to have some serious issues even after 4 cocktails. And we would quickly figure out that 99.9% of all drink menus out there, even if it's a Michelin star restaurant, but they're all completely wrong, chemically speaking. And that's what we're sort of promoting right now. We'll come in, we'll fix your menu, we substitute certain ingredients, we leave the flavor profile the same, although you can put chamomile into one cocktail and rosemary into the other, because one of them produces adrenaline, the other one produces serotonin. So, you know, like you really screw with your CNS. And if you know that because we're perfumers, we can literally say we can evoke euphoria just by not even having to drink the drink, but smelling it before already, or infusing an ultrasound diffused scent into the air. You could choose where to send people at events and what they wanted to feel like. So it became really complicated. We even made like edible soap bubbles to do that, you know. But the hangover prevention was always the main part where we say, okay, in order for you not to go through that glutamine rebound, which is the tap on the shoulder from your body saying you're dying, you also could prevent the hangover by putting fixed different substances, mainly if you wanted to buy them on Amazon. We could do that into your body before bedtime, and that's the most important thing, not after. There's no hangover cure, because once you've already gone under this carcinogenic process and depletion of every nutrient, vitamin, amino acid, mineral that you have in your body, it's already too late. Your body will do that because it's going to crave the next day every single thing that you depleted it of. So we would basically just say, like, okay, you definitely need magnesium, right? Either the glycinate or magnesium althreonate, depending on how good your brain is or not. But normally the glycinate has more elemental magnesium to provide you with better sleep and such. But I'm a big fan of Macteam because it's blood-brain barrier crossing and it's the most bioavailable version out there. N-acetylcysteine is probably the most important ingredient when it comes to hangover prevention. NAC, good 900 milligrams, even more, you can double that up. And then in connection with the NAC, you need a precursor of a B1 vitamin called mononitrate, thiamine mononitrate. And if you put these two together, it naturally allows your body to produce massive amounts of glutathione. And that's how you can prevent flus in the winter, by supplementing with these two ingredients just for respiratory issues, to make sure that you're not getting anything on a daily basis before bedtime as well. Then you need obviously glutamine replenishment, so AKG or alpha ketoglutaric acid would be another ingredient. And then you need to protect your liver from the alcohol and your digestive tract. So for liver, usually it's a silymarin, a concentrated one, it's a milk thistle extract, and then like a chamomile hydrosol to protect your intestines and your stomach. And those are the most important ingredients pretty much when you consume alcohol before bedtime. Or you can eat 2 bananas, which is impossible for most people when they're drunk. But bananas are pretty much one of the best. They contain pretty much everything that I just talked about.
Very cool.
Including vitamin C, including B1, including magnesium and such, and minerals. So that's a good game changer. You'll still be intoxicated, but you will not have that headache. You will not have the nausea that most people obviously get. And this is pretty much the secret of hangover prevention. Our product contained over 17 different vitamins inside, and took 10 years to make. And our first investor was Gwyneth Paltrow, and Jay-Z actually held it up at Carnegie Hall while he was performing. That's how popular this stuff was. It was in every New York nightclub. It was all over the US and worldwide too. We had in Japan and China. And then the FDA came and said, hey, NAC we're gonna make a drug now.
You remember that? I remember when they tried doing that. That is unbelievable. It's one of the best things you can put in your body is NAC. And the FDA comes along. Are you talking about during COVID? Because they tried doing it during COVID.
Correct. Yeah.
I cannot believe
when everybody got a letter in the mail saying, like, hey, you got to take this out of your formulation. And we said, like, this is our most important ingredient. Without this, there's no hangover prevention.
That is
they're like, yeah, too bad. But I was sure that it would come back. Too many people would have complained. I know CBD is going to be a drug by next year.
But NAC, you can still buy NAC open. So whatever came of that with the FDA, because you can still get it.
They put it back on Amazon after 6 months. It was off for 6 months, and then they put it back on because many people, complain about it.
NAC could cure all of your little COVID symptoms. Absolutely
unbelievable. New cases, especially if you have like URIs or if you have like pneumonia and whatnot. It's a really amazing help just to make sure that you have an antioxidant that doesn't let you down. Obviously, there's a lot more involved that we talk about today, which is microbes. But that was sort of the alcohol craze that people followed me for. And then we had articles in different magazines every single day for like 5 years in a row. And we were like on top of the world when it came to like, hey, drink menu, here we go. We were able to change the entire restaurant industry by saying like, hey, let me make you the menu. You're going to make 4 times as much money. You save 80% in liquor costs. And that goes for events. You don't have to deal with all the logistics and all the juices and cranberry and mixers and whatnot. Just give me one spirit that is a good quality. Preferably tequila, gin, and bourbon. Tequila is good for cardiovascular health. This is the upper. Then bourbon is great for depression and anxiety, and gin was a no-brainer for women. So that's how we did that. And then I would come up with a 3-4 flavor profile. and give it a function, because you should be able to satisfy every single person when you go out in a restaurant and you look at the menu. It shouldn't be just like brand names, brand names, brand names, and flavors that really don't go with each other just because the bartender is creative or had like kind of like an epiphany. It's chemicals. It's dangerous chemicals, especially if you mix them with alcohol. Like, as I said, caffeine and alcohol combinations, or herbs like rosemary or basils and things in drinks. People take too much of these, and then they mix them with ingredients that confuse your CNS, and that gets really, really dangerous. And I mean, here in New York, all the speakeasies up to 10 years ago, 20% of all the people fell off their chairs because everybody's on prescription medication. Everybody in this country here is on SSRIs or amphetamine, and to me, 14 out of 15, parents in my pre-K, they're all on SSRIs, because I tried to give them my product, which is a substitute, the first ever patented version of an empathogen that's purely plant-based that eliminates anxiety and fear and depression, and I tried to give this to these people, and they're like, oh no, I'm on, this and this, and I'm on Prozac, and I'm blah, blah, blah. And she was like, yeah, and my kid is on Adderall too, and on Vyvanse and Ritalin, and, it's the US. It's not everywhere. It's predominantly here, but, I see other countries going in that way because this is just keeping people on a leash,
Makes
it's not a,
so money. It keeps everyone under control. It makes so much money. A huge thing. I know you see me talk about on Instagram the statins and the hormonal birth control and the things like this. That, dude,
thyroid medication. Yeah.
the thyroid medication. Um, Obviously, one of my favorite topics is talking about the hypothyroidism because you know, Dr. Alex, it's not that hard to fix autoimmune diseases. You know what the hard part? You know what the hard part I have found in people is the amount of people who want to continue to identify with that illness or with whatever they have wrong, who don't have an identity away from having their Crohn's disease or their IBS or the hypothyroidism or their anxiety or their depression. I want to get into this anxiety depression thing. You're a microbiome expert. And I yesterday, RFK obviously said he's going to launch a deep investigation into SSRIs and what they're causing in our youth, what they have going on. I have a thought that I would love to share. This is something I always do on the podcast because I'm obviously not a doctor. I talk about a lot of things that you understand. Dr.
Yeah.
Tina understands. Other doctors understand who follow me, but a lot of doctors get uncomfy about. Mental illness is a metabolic dysfunction, and your brain is not utilizing glucose and other substrates of energy in an appropriate manner. That's my belief. Destroy that or love it or whatever you want to do with it.
I can't say anything against that. I know that most diseases, in fact, up to 80% of all diseases out there, including cancer, Parkinson's, autism, all comes from here. And this is it's called an abundance profile. It's what everybody should actually get in their lifetime. It's 10 pages of double pages, by the way, of all the microbes with serial numbers and genuses. And I can tell you exactly how many live inside of you. So just by looking at an abundance profile, I can tell you if you're autistic. I can tell you if you're depressed. I can tell you if you're thin or thick, or if you have mental illness, if you have Parkinson's, if you have autism, if you have autoimmune diseases. You can see that within 5 minutes of just looking at these numbers, because I can tell you what you're overgrown with, what you're deficient of. And again, it's not rocket science, but up to the end of the 90s, mental health was defined as a different thing. Before we knew what lives in our gut. So coming back to what is mental illness, it's a dysbiosis in your gut. And I've done 18,000 abundance profiles for people. I specialize in children and terminal, cancer patients as well. And myself, I am a brain cancer survivor. So people have asked me, without invasive surgery, chemo, or radiation, how does one do that? And again, I can't scream that from the rooftops because every single person is different. We all have different genetics, we all have different distribution of neurotransmitters, and we all have, different chemistry that's going on. But what you can do is you can look inside of yourself. And everybody alive should do this, because what I just showed you is probably the most effective diagnostic tool in modern medicine that no MD, oncologist, and superstar neurochemist, learns about or has learned about in med school. Now they're sort of touching upon the subject that microbes are important for your health. But I've known that for 30 years, and I've specialized in it, and I've gotten to know every microbe and its function and what it does, from caffeine degrading and bodybuilders, because I was listening to your folks the other day, and it how the gut liver axis works with caffeine, because if you're overgrown with caffeine degrading bacteria, you have experience shortened effects. So everybody's different. You can't generalize and universalize health, because it all depends on your microbes. Keep this in mind, and this is not new. This is not pseudoscience. This is not like anything. You can Google this. You can maybe a bad choice of words, but you can research that we have about 37 trillion human cells, right?
Yeah.
Give or take. But we also 400 trillion microbial cells, right? 400 trillion microbial
We're more
cells.
bacteria than
We're
we are
10
human.
times more alien than we are human. We have 100 times more foreign DNA in our system than we have human DNA. They have ruled our life, will rule our life, and have always done it on that substrate of the fungus that goes inside of our intestinal walls. And that's it. And there's nothing else. There's no magical cure besides knowing your chemistry. And especially on your podcast here, I have the holy grail for bodybuilders pretty much written down for you today, because I know how important it is to speak about these things, but people need to sort of wake up and smell the coffee when it comes to like what they're made out of, right? I have these things that I show little children actually when they over hand sanitize each other. I'm going to pull this actually up from my Instagram here to show you how important it is to not put alcohol into your hands, because
Wait, it's also funny to hear that, because I have this thing, Alex, where I say we're too clean. We're too clean as a society. We're washing our hands too much. We're using hand sanitizer too much. We don't have enough exposure to
we're germaphobes.
germs.
Yeah,
Yes, we
yeah.
are. So it's
We
funny
have
to
to
hear you say
embrace them.
this.
We can't be scared of viruses and bacteria. We have to embrace them. It's all about
Yes.
resilience. Like 80% of the entire world population is unvaccinated. But the thing is that the people that get sick all this time are mostly the people, and those are the people I've done gut abundance profiles for, 18,000, by the way, that I live in big cities. And also I've done it on farmers and people in different other countries. And I know that your microbial abundance should be about 1,200 bacteria if you're, really good diversity. Most people I've done in the last 5 years here, but they only have 600 to 800 bacterial families in their gut. So, this is something that you should think about, because every one of them is responsible for something. This is my little daughter's hand in a petri dish, right?
Yeah.
And a day later, this is what happens to it, right?
Okay.
This is
Okay.
your handprint profile of all the bacterial families that live on your hand and protect
Oh
you
my goodness.
from all these things in the world. And and even when you wash your hands 15 times a day, it'll still look like this. So this is what your hand should look like under a microscope. And
Okay.
people who take hand sanitizer destroy the entire pH mantle of their skin.
Yeah.
Skin conditions like atopic dermatitis and acne and whatever, it all comes from within. Nothing you put on your skin will ever determine the health of your skin. It always comes from the gut skin, gut brain, gut liver, whatever you want to. So it's a microbial problem. It's the bacteria that give you this, the itchy flakes. It's the staph bacteria, and you need to, if you can eliminate these, or, say like, hey, I'm going to change my gut because whatever's on the inside is also on the outside. Then you can do miraculously things that people will be in disbelief for. Where they say like, what do you mean you can cure acne in 4 weeks? I was like, I can do it. If I charged for it, I would even say money back guarantee. But there's one thing
Damn.
you
I
have,
say
one
8
thing
weeks.
to do. No, 4 weeks.
I say 8 weeks to have a 50% decrease in acne. You're saying cure, gone, bye bye in 4 weeks.
Yes.
Oh my
Um,
goodness. I might need
it
to
takes
hire
a
you for
good it
some
takes a good
sauce.
diet to do so, because I work with, I always call the newly bred and the nearly dead. They have a lot in common biochemically speaking, and for little kids or elderly people, if you change their diet within 2-3 days, you already see a difference, like an extended gut, or like a really big belly or whatnot. That can go away after 4 days. I've worked with kids that don't go to ballet class, or they're too, self-conscious to be around other kids because they make fun of them and things. And you can literally help these kiddos by just tuning their diet and asking their parents to be very strict about it, because you can't cheat with diets for the gut.
Yep.
Like, as I showed you, your abundance profile, which is the hopefully 1,000 bacterial families that we know live in your gut. You take a simple gut test. It's a couple $100 maybe now. They started at $75. And you go to a commercial lab and you provide a rice corn size of poo. And a couple of weeks later, you have your abundance profile you can print out. And then you call me, and then I can spider web it together for you. Because the computer or the algorithm can't do that, because they have not studied microbes like we have. And you always see nuances or certain things that the computer cannot catch because they're connected. Yeah. So it's very important to have someone evaluate that for you, because the algorithm already, they kind of compare you to 300 million other people that are out there. And it doesn't really work like this. And then they give you a gut score, so like, 87, you're doing great. But you could be literally days before going into like massive dysbiosis, colon cancer, whatever. Computer wouldn't even tell you that, right? But we can see that within 5-10 minutes of looking at your profile. What actually takes the longest for us is to type everything up for you. So we're trying to find a program that can do this and put it right next to each other and say, like, hey, your lactobacilli count is 19,000% overgrown. You're most likely autistic, but so you can see these things. And then you can spiderweb it and connect every single one of their symptoms that they complain about on the health questionnaire to one of these microbes and say, this is responsible for this. This is your depression. This is why you're insulin resistant, glucose intolerant, and your doctor shouldn't even have to give you medications for this for the rest of your life, because he would just kill you. But all you can do is basically get rid of the Bacteroides storae that you're overgrown with, which expose you to tons of lipopolysaccharides that will make you insulin resistant, glucose intolerant. I can tell you why you're sick. MDs don't know that. They just see it. They're there. They have 5 minutes to diagnose you, get you out of their office, and give you something from their prescription pad, which is most of the time just rolling the dice, right? And that's how millions of people die each year. It's because they're sort of prone to this protocol that they have to prescribe this for this symptom, and nobody ever plays jazz, but they took the Hippocratic oath. So it's the most Hippocratic thing to me that you can think of. It's like putting a scientist in their oath that sort of tells you what you have to do, which is you are what you eat, is something that no doctor out there, I wouldn't say no doctor, I work with a lot of MDs and oncologists on a daily basis, but most of them, they just basically, their jaw drops and they're like, oh, how come I didn't learn this in med school? I'm so so confused about my job. Should I quit my job and work on your side? And now you see a lot of doctors out there that get phone calls from insurance companies mid-surgery and say like, oh, is this really necessary? And this is something I despise. So we started this amazing, pro bono thing where people can come to us, they purchase a gut test, they call us, they give us donation, and for every 100 donations we purchase, literally one of the best cancer cures on the entire planet, which is cordyceps, right? The caterpillar. We get this from Tibet and Bhutan, and then we make these capsules out of it.
Beautiful.
And or teas, and it's basically a substitute for chemo. And we've done this 220 times now on brain cancer patients, and they all went into full remission. So there is something out there that you need to educate yourself about, and not just listen to someone who says, okay, here's the brochure for the wigs because you're going to lose your hair because of chemo, and then this is the radiation machine, and by the way, this whole treatment, if you didn't have any health insurance, would cost you $330,000. We purchase cordyceps maybe $100,000 a year for every 100 consults we do, and then literally give them out for free because they work universally on every cancer, and you don't have to inject it, and it's non-invasive, and there's no distress or upset. So it's extremely frustrating to know that we have all these amazing extracts out there, and people are still not paying attention because they're obviously pushed into a different direction.
I have a question. Do you ever? This is a serious question. You'll know this is a serious question for listeners. Yes, this is a serious question because I have people DM me telling me like, "Hey, just so you know, I say a prayer for you every night. The information you're sharing can make you a target for
Yeah,
uh, certain entities."
yeah.
And I have started, to be honest, Alex, I've been getting more of those messages recently. Do you ever worry about like, man, you have the sauce to kind of undermine the entire westernized healthcare um,
I do it
and
under on.
capitalized industry? Do you worry about someone coming after you and be like, hey, you better stop, you better chill?
Oh, people have come. Many people have come. They even like made fake arrangements for business proposals or a visit to my lab that I used to do, which I don't allow people into my lab anymore. But to put it out there, we're not doing this undercover, like with no practitioner or whatnot. We don't do that. It's not Dallas Buyers Club out here. Excellent film, by the way. But what we do is we provide information. People sign a disclaimer and saying like, I know you're not here to intend to do certain things with, my health. What we do is we work on an umbrella with other MDs and doctors. So if I say you need to get off of these SSRIs, we can titrate you on a scaletium extract and titrate you off of your SSRIs, and this is going to take about 4 weeks because you've only been on it for like a year or so, right? So it's not me that's doing it. I'm not a practitioner. I'm not an MD. I'm not allowed to do this. I would get in trouble for that. What I do is I provide people with information that an algorithm doesn't give them after they do this gut test. And there's all these gut tests out there for the last like 10 plus years. I've worked with a company, that's what they're called, Ombre Labs. They were the
Lumber.
first ones. They started off as Thrive Inside. They had some, good microbiologists. And it used to be the most inexpensive one because I'm not interested in like charts and pie charts and whatever, because most of this, what they give you as an algorithm is incorrect. And people get say like, oh, I'm healthy, I don't have to do anything. What I do is basically I look at all these bacteria, and that's where my profession comes in as a PhD, is to say I have knowledge that nobody else has. There's maybe a handful of people out there that can do that. And mostly they're in Germany. But what I do is I present this evaluation to whoever needs the information. And then I say, if you wanted to tune your diet and come back to me in 4 months, you would do the same test and you can see how you're back in equilibrium and symbiosis. Because out of the 18,000 people that we've evaluated, some still under when I worked for the government, is I've never met a healthy person, including myself. I thought
Yeah.
I was pretty healthy, but it's impossible to do so because what really gets you in your diet is this, right? This is your
Yep.
brain, and specifically your medial forebrain bundle, which is the pleasure circuitry of your brain. And this is where I want to connect to one of your last posts that you said about addiction to salt, fat, and sugar, and
Yep.
how companies use this addiction to create, bigger and better and brighter snacks out there to get people hooked on it. And McDonald's says it's not our fault that we have a 61% obesity rate. It's your brain's fault. If you can control your brain, then that's pretty much it, because it is 11 times more addictive to our brain than heroin or cocaine. Salt is the
Wow.
biggest drug on the planet, and if you have salt, fat, and sugar, you can create every snack you want there, and give it a
Yeah.
different shape and puff it differently into a different color. And that's what you see when you go into a supermarket. There's 300,000 brands out there that are all owned by 4 brands. you
Yep.
know and this is
Yep.
sort of like the hierarchy in this, because this is the biggest industry in the world, is the food industry. And the
Yeah.
second biggest industry of the world profits from you being sick from that food industry, which is pharma. So these are both connected. And there's kind of like this vortex of terror. So your medial forebrain bundle needs to be set back into the original factory settings, I call it, by getting rid of the hedonic cravings, not the homeostatic cravings, but the hedonic craving, which is the cravings because it makes you happy, right? Dopamine.
Yes.
And this is the
Yes.
biggest thing. So, for people out there, and you see it everywhere in the supermarket, the entire cart, they spend $300 on just salt, fat, and sugary snacks every single day. There's
Yep.
no education in this country about nutrition. You got rid of home ed 20 years ago. So where I come from, we have a nutritional class in fourth grade or even in third grade. We tell kids this is healthy, this is not healthy. We know our water that we drink has, have to do with why there's obesity and why there's skinny people, although we eat the same thing sometimes. Like in Europe and France and Japan, people eat fat, heavy meals, sauces and thick stuff, and they're still skinny. Why is that?
Yeah.
Because the waste products that come with these products, they're properly extracted out of your body. While as if you drink pH sour water here in the US, like whatever comes out of your faucet is like 5.6 or 6.2, it's acid, and that
Yep.
can't allow your body to stay at a pH neutral level because your blood is 7.5, 7.6. So you need to keep.
Isn't the pH, don't we want it to be like 9 or 9.5 in water?
No, we don't.
What do we want the pH to be?
7.5 should be a pH
We
level
want
in
it to be
drinking water.
7.5.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I was looking into I was being sold one of those fancy big things that connects to my faucet and all the water runs through and it changes its pH and whatnot. And the guy selling it, he wasn't like a salesperson. He was the owner of the company. He wanted to come on the podcast. He wanted to send me a product. He wanted all this. He was telling me how we want that water to be like 9.5 or something. Maybe I'm
No,
misquoting.
alkaline
Maybe I'm
water
missing
is
it.
not what we need to drink. We need to drink
So we
pH
want it to be
neutral water.
7.5.
Correct. Like look at all
Okay.
the German table waters. They're lightly carbonated. They have minerals in it, and they drink
Yeah.
mineral water out there. Here, people drink distilled waters. But like, it's just nutrition is not really existent here, and it's
Yeah.
easier for a parent to give your kid a $20 bill and say, like, here, go to Subway, which has now become the biggest fast food company in the world.
Yeah.
It's easier to do that than rather sit around the table, take your time and educate your people about like what you should eat. And this is where we come to that diet. Like if you say, hey, most people that I work on, um, come back to the like how do you not get in trouble? I usually call the doctor that is responsible
Yeah.
for the person. I ask the patient, please set up a call. It's not an ego thing. I don't want to say I know more than you do or whatever, although I do. I call the doctor. I do a short intro and say like, here, this I'm an independent researcher, and I found out that you are about to kill your patient with antibiotics, right? Or you put this kid that has Hunter syndrome on a meat diet, although she's not allowed to have meat, because she doesn't have the bacteria to metabolize anything. Uh, they're always open to conversations. They're always fascinated by what we have to say about microbes because they get frustrated of not knowing that enough. And they're always obviously like, okay, I'm a doctor. I have to give them steroids and antibiotics because we're in a hospital setting and that prevents them from getting hospital-acquired infections and like and pneumonia and such thing. And this is basically the biggest mistake that they can make is give them something that kills your immune system, guaranteed. Just one round of antibiotics takes your immune system 8 months to
Yeah.
recover. And this is something specifically with children that use their first 36 months after birth to build their entire immune system for life. Happens in the first 3 years of their life.
But
Most
we're
parents,
vaccinating our kids so freaking much.
yeah, you can't get me started on that because I did get in trouble for
No,
touching this
hang on,
topic.
hang on. But you said the vaccine thing first, and I'm very recently. You can say what you want to say. I'm going to share my thoughts. The next phase of my life, Alex. I have the most wonderful woman of all time. She is my girlfriend. We talk a lot. She's a nurse, so
Yeah,
dating me has for the last years opened her eyes tremendously to what in the world is happening here.
yeah,
Um, I also happen to have become friendly with the guy who created mRNA vaccines.
hmm.
And as I'm sure you know, he has said that was never intended for humans. Um, the current vaccine schedule is absolutely outrageous. And my girlfriend and I have had many conversations where I have shared with her my thoughts on I feel very strongly that it's not a good decision for parents to make to have their children follow the vaccine schedule.
Well, most
Um,
Nobel laureates in virology would agree with you on that, saying that as a human, we wouldn't need any vaccines at all if we hadn't started vaccinating, because it's all about obviously resilience on the planet, right? Like there comes a virus, and even if it's just a respiratory virus or like COVID, for instance, it's something that unless you're immunocompromised, you really don't have anything to worry about. But since this country is extremely unhealthy, has a 61% obesity rate, people are drinking alcohol, vaping, and smoking, you are the first number one, patient with COVID out there. I've had friends that COVID 400 times already, and now realizing that, like, okay, I barely feel it anymore, or my body's gotten used to it, or whatnot. And then there's people who obviously are affected, but it's a minute amount compared to, like 8 million people die because they eat themselves to death yearly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because they're addicted to salt, fat, and sugar. COVID killed 5-6 million people maybe in over 6-7 years. So,
Maybe.
again, I'm not that kind of guy. Where I'm saying, like, I'm against vaccines. There's some vaccines I'm very happy that I got as a child, because it is very important to do that with certain diseases. For respiratory illnesses or the flu even, again, this is something that your body should be able to fight off on its own, because of your gut. And your gut and your diet determine the severity of the symptoms of any disease. Like I can get a flu, I'm rid of it in 2 days. Other people take 2 weeks, right? It's about what you feed your body. So if I say, okay, you're overgrown with this, and this, and here are the commensal bacteria. This is what you've lived with since you were born, since you came out of your mom's birth canal, and then you latched onto her breast. And that's when you get, that's when the whole immune system starts happening, and then you have and these are responsible, these commensal bacteria, they're responsible for pathogen invasion and, colonization, obviously. And then you have the probiotic bacteria. They're the residential ones, right? Heart health, skin, brain, metabolism, energy. That's what they do. Very important, specifically in workout. Focus on prebiotics and probiotics, and you're good to go, right? So then you have the pathogenic bacteria. They exert negative health effects, 100%, bad stuff, right? Most of the people, they're overgrown with 4 or maybe 2 to 4 of them. I have seen many people, specifically people that are on antibiotics, all the time for, anything from the flu to something, infections they have in the respiratory tract. People just do it too often. So they're not left with any bacteria that can produce these short-chain fatty acids that are good for your intestines. And then you have the pathobiontic bacteria. That's the 4th group. So 4 groups of bacteria. This is what rule your life. The pathobiontic bacteria, they're opportunistic bacteria. And these opportunistic bacteria, they can go both ways. They're not really beneficial, nor do they harm you. But if you are in major dysbiosis, they will choose the dark energy and then make things even worse. So when people say, take probiotics, or take bacteria, or this is healthy for you, or nutritionists, my favorite group of people who say, like, you should eat this and this and this. We haven't done a gut test with you, so I'm literally just rolling the dice. I can actually kill you by my suggestions, but they have their certificates and everything, right? So I basically, I'm on the other side to say I'm a scientist who evaluates your gut profile, types it up for you and say, like, the reason you are an insulin resistant is because of that bacteria. The reason you have depression is because of these bacteria. And the reason you have celiacs or irritable bowel syndrome or disease or, Crohn's disease or autism or whatnot is because of this bacterial profile. And that is 100% proven, right? This is not something I made up. Many, many people know that. So then you can look at the top 10 or to top 200 ingredients to start eating. You say, okay, your diet, you need to boost these bacteria, and these bacteria are being metabolized with this food right here. So, like this specific bacteria thrives on, like resistant starches. This one is responsible for mineral absorption. This is responsible for this because you're lacking this one, because most people are highly inflamed with at least 8 different bacteria, highly inflamed. Like I'm talking about 20,000% overgrowth, right?
Wow.
Like not just one in 18,000, probably 17,000 out of 18,000 people. They're massively overgrown with highly inflammatory bacteria, and you wouldn't know because you think you're eating the healthy stuff. Unless you have done that gut test, unless you have seen your bacteria, you wouldn't even know what's healthy for you. And this is the most important part out there. So most people cannot have any seed oils. They can't have any eggs or chickens because here in this country, people eat animal protein almost every single day, right? Mostly chicken too. And if you can't have chicken, you can't have eggs. Chemically speaking,
Yeah.
same thing,
Yeah.
to the microbe. And then there's fish. Some people need fish. Some people cannot have any fish. Some people need wheat germ. Some people can't have it. So like you cannot say in general you should be eating this, and that's just a scientific fact. You need to look inside you and say like, okay, here I have zero bacteria left of something I should have 6.5% of, and that's why I'm having massive gas and hydrogen sulfide coming out of my butt, right? Because nobody's ever bothered to make sure what I'm made of. And this is, as I said, this is the best $200 ever spent on the entire lifetime. And it will show you why you're sick. It will show you in a very short amount of time how you can go from dysbiosis into symbiosis. It usually takes 4 months for sure to work on everything from hormonal dysregulation to minerals, aminos, vitamins, on metabolism, on muscle synthesis, sleep, more important than food even. People never talk about that, because most people are like, I sleep well because I'm on an AM, I'll take a little mini Xanax or something. But they don't understand that sleep, you have to go through all stages of sleep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And most sleep aids bring you from 1 to 5 without regenerating your body, eyesight, muscle cells, ligaments, waste products out of your brain. So they wake up the next day, they think they slept okay, but their body hasn't regenerated, and that's another problem here, specifically sleep aids, So looking at microbes, you can tune those by saying, here are the 200 plus foods to eat, and here are the 10 no foods. But you have to literally be religious about it, because if there's Thanksgiving coming along 2 months into your diet and you're like, ah, crap, I can eat the mashed potatoes just once. Nobody would ever know. The microbes that are still left in there will grow 200 times as fast. And then like before you know it, your entire diet is screwed up. So that is something that I always tell people. Say like, okay, you're about to make a donation to our services, as you want to call it, and I need to make sure that you are disciplined enough to follow that diet. Because more people say, especially people who they're doing it for business, in the spirits industry, or they're in the public eye and they're having to rep a certain product or whatnot. They have to drink a certain drink or do something. They're like, I do anything you want to except smoking, drinking, vaping. And I tell them, I'm like, I can't help you. If you don't follow that, because smoking, drinking, vaping is pretty much the worst cancer-causing activities, that there is. And people are still proud of it. They're like, oh, I prefer the spirit. Every single day I drink it. And, I come from the alcohol industry. Nobody has gotten more people drunk in their lifetime than I have. So, and it's kind of coming back now where I say like, hey, I'm giving back that knowledge that I've gained after boozing for 30 years and after consulting for people in a responsible way. I call it responsible revelry, right? Where we can say like, now I'm educating you about how dangerous this alcohol is. You can still drink, but in case you had too much, you have to do this before your bedtime in order to save your body, So that's pretty much that. But microbes is what rule your every single day life, and it determines how you avoid overstimulating your certain systems. It's critical for anything in your group of work for muscle synthesis or fitness and bodybuilding. I have worked with many bodybuilders before. My mother used to own a studio in Germany, and she had Ralph Meller, the guy from Gladiator, the German bodybuilder. He was our instructor.
Amazing.
And so like when I was little, my job was to basically collect little 5-mark pieces to, go to the tanning machine and, put in 15 minutes for the people who would go tanning. And then I would hang out with all these, guys that had biceps bigger than my leg, So I grew up with this, and I appreciate your knowledge with things. And hopefully you're going to ask me some questions about the bodybuilding part of this podcast too, because I know a lot of people are working out like crazy, and I can help them be more optimal about this.
Something that obviously a majority of people who follow me on social media and who listen to this podcast, they're people who are on some form of HRT. So like I talk a ton about progesterone, which not near enough people are talking about. I find that to be quite sad. Is I view progesterone as definitely the most important female hormone. I think that's abundantly important in men too. To be honest with you, Alex, I remember, I remember when I started testosterone, and I remember how much different my life became. For me, it was a very positive thing.
Yeah.
When I started utilizing progesterone 3-4 nights a week, that changed my life as much as the testosterone changed my life. And as a man, I think it's our second most important hormone. Potentially, I mean, we can talk about allopregnanolone too. I think that one's very important. But for sake of this conversation, people who are on testosterone, they go to their doctor, they get the prescription. There's a few issues that I have in terms of how things are done here. And number one, if you're going to give somebody testosterone, you better give them something to make sure that all the excess hormones and metabolites are going to be detoxified correctly. So we run into all these liver issues, and liver issues are way more than your GGT, ALT, AST scores. Those aren't given y'all too much in terms of your liver function. In my opinion, the best liver function tests we have is how healthy is your thyroid. I know you see me talk about the body temperatures. I assess all thyroid health off of those body temperatures because I've seen a million people with, all right, not a million, I've seen 100 people with 3.9 T3 readings in lab work, which, wow, like this is great. Upper part of the reference range, who still have 96-degree body temperatures in the morning. And
Yeah.
obviously that's way too low. You want to wake up between 97.6, 98. So I want to hear your take on, and wherever I share an opinion, one of my opinion that you disagree with, please feel free to chime in.
I'm not really
Alongside,
disagreeing with things that you're saying. I want to give you a bigger picture because you have to look at the body as a whole. Because most of the time, you guys are overstimulating certain specific system. Because bodybuilders heavily rely on gut health and they don't know it.
yeah,
And I'm here to talk about it today because hormonal dysregulation is what gets everyone. Gut influences, the gut influences testosterone, insulin, cortisol, like insulin growth factor, like IGF-1. So hormones that are crucial for muscle growth, metabolism, anything. If you start invading this by giving it more, and again, here for metabolizing all these hormones, Akkermansia, lactoplantarum, or bifido longo, those are the three bacteria that do this. So you can easily supplement with them, and I will tell you the whole regimen here on the podcast today. What you need to
please.
do to tune the microbes so you can actually metabolize everything and produce everything naturally. Because if you're being too invasive to say like I'm going to put testosterone and more testosterone and more progesterone, you are upending the balance of everything. And then your body doesn't know where
Okay.
things come from. So when we talk about mitochondrial energy, right? Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, it's a funny looking name. It's responsible for that. Glucose regulation, fat storage is rosburia. Clostridium for mitochondrial function, Prevotella for glycogen reserves and short chain fatty acid production. And then you have Bacteroides fragilis for exercise recovery and immune response, right? And everything from protein metabolism to modulating cortisol, which is the energy during your workout that you have, to short chain fatty acid production for the gut, because overtraining harms the gut lining. And that's what a lot of athletes and bodybuilders don't know either. It's like you need rest, sleep, you need like no stress, you need low iron to do that. And because bacteria thrive on low iron, they thrive on antibiotic use, they thrive on things that are dysregulated. And if you start screwing with your hormones, and that includes melatonin for sleep too, you're going to run into very, very bad problems in your life because then the phases, everything is going to be screwed up. So again, the minerals, aminos, and vitamins like iron, zinc, and magnesium that are critical for muscle synthesis, as like inflammation hinders this recovery. I can tell you that everyone, even those who think they have figured it out with supplementation, is completely wrong. And they're going to get their big surprise later on what you need to do is have your body do it naturally. It has to be an optimal metabolism, nutrient absorption, muscle and ligament repair, and the gut and sleep are like holy grails for that. So like if I tell you what you should do as a supplement, I can only go back to that you have to look at the body as a whole, because again, everything that you're talking about, especially what you just asked me, has all something to do with microbes. And that is what actually does it. Like 90% of your serotonin is produced in your gut, right? So if I give it something, or if I give it a supplement or an SSRI or whatever you want to call it, like my supplement, for instance, right? I developed a supplement. This is a supplement, really beautiful pathogenic supplement called CAR. So I've invented
I've
this
seen that before. I've seen you post that before.
6 years ago, right? And it took, we also have a tincture out, whatever. This is what we got these, and this is the first of its kind, natural SRI, if you will. It does a lot more than that. People take it for workout and marathon runs and empathy and heart opening and cancer and, like Parkinson's and inflammatory disease. But like we've marketed it for, this is an everyday navigator through everyday stress, anxiety, depression, and fear. Right. So if you want this to work on the human body, and now we've had the time to try it out, right? For 6 years, 3 years now, it's been sold on Amazon. We've changed hundreds and thousands of lives with it by unplugging people from harmful meds that are invasive. This is neuroprotective. This is neurogenesis. Even this plant has been used for 10,000 years. It's been used for 10,000 years, by the Khoi people in South Africa for multi-day hunting without eating and drinking. It's been used for alcohol abuse in the hospitals for over 50 years in Africa, but it hasn't really made its way over here. When I give this to people, specifically people who've been on SSRIs and stopped, or I give it to people that are highly inflamed, or people that are obese, or people that are vapors or alcohol, consumers, sometimes they don't even feel anything, and they're like, "What's going on? Is this a placebo?" Like that's a good amount of people. It's because the serotonin that this product produces, so the alkaloids from the plant, like the mesembrine and mesembrinone, will save your life first before it can give you the mood uplift. And they're like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, the serotonin that this product will, allow you to produce, and that is more bioavailable in and out of cells because it also influences like, VMAT and all these monoamine transporter vehicles, for having things not being invasive, but keeping them available all the time without depleting them, like SSRIs. SSRIs literally calibrate your brain to a very, very bad state. This is non-invasive. It's not habit forming. There's no tolerance buildup. So we always explain it this way, where we say, we've given you a substance that now saves your life by getting rid of inflammation, by converting the serotonin process into histaminic reactions, so it can save your life because you're massively inflamed through your diet and food down there. And then after 2-3 days, while you calibrate it on this, then you're good to go. This is how important microbes are with hormones and with neurotransmitters, right? So
Alex, spell your supplement out for us so people can find it.
It's called CAR, K-A apostrophe. It's not an apostrophe. It's an exclamation mark, but it's a phonetic sound from the Khoi people because they have a click language. They're called Ka. Ka means life force, and then it's the Bushman language.
So who should not take this Ka?
The Ka product, you cannot take it if you're on SSRIs or MAO inhibitors or NRIs, things that already screw with your neurotransmitters. But there's a great website called ohmycar.com, and it's a phenomenal website. They did a really great job with like ancient wisdom meets modern science, and it's an amazing product. I don't work with them anymore. My job with them is done. I was head of R&D. I've done a couple of other things for them that they will launch as well. But I'm a huge fan because it's my baby. I developed the formula. It's without sugar, without elastomers, without any latexes. And there is no gums in there. Regular chewing gum contains like 7 different plastics, and has no preservatives. It's done at room temperature by hand, and it's never been done. And you chew it into smaller pieces. You let them dissolve in your mouth. and via the oral mucosa, you absorb it right here and it goes straight into your brain, and you can feel the difference within seconds. So we have this,
Amazing.
you have the tincture that you can use to find your dosage and then translate that onto the chew, because it's a very high standardized extract. And again, you can use it to unplug people from the matrix, salt, fat, sugar addictions, alcohol, opioids, nicotines, amphetamines, benzos, in a very short amount of time without withdrawal symptoms. And it's great for
That is
workout because
amazing.
it works on endurance. We've had bodybuilders and weightlifters tell us that they can like literally lift 30% more while they're on it. We had marathon runners run like improve their runs like by a quarter of their time. Pretty amazing stuff. Again, it's 10,000-year-old science, and
Yeah.
we've made it into a beautiful formulation with snow lotus for oxygenation, with rose, with ginger as an antiemetic. We have acacia in there as a prebiotic as well. So it's a really beautifully designed product. It tastes like a little berry-ish. And then the agmella flower, which is my favorite, I want to send you a package with those, is an
I
Amazonian
love
plant
that. Thank
that is
you.
a natural antimicrobial, but it also is responsible for salivation, because you can't obviously absorb anything in your oral mucosa if you have a dry mouth. So you need to make sure to stimulate your salivary glands. It's a really fun flower. It's been used in culinary, but it's used for the last 40 years for cancer, malaria, and HIV as injections. It's an antimicrobial, immunomodulatory, and it gives you a massive tingle. And that's the tingle we use for NASA astronauts in those tiny little pearls here that are in here that they put into their water pouch. They bite down at it, and then they feel like they're having carbonation in space without the gas in
Wow.
their tummy, because it mimics effervescence in your mouth, sort of like Pop Rocks without the gas. So it's the same effect when you chew on our product, and then you salivate, and then you kind of feel it kick in, and it's a beautiful, beautiful formula.
That's awesome. I'm really looking forward to trying it out. So I have it pulled up here, and man, you know what you've made here, especially with like I'm going to read this for the audience. It says for the feeling, time release effect kicks in about 30 60 minutes after ingesting, can last from a half to a full day. Lifted, lively mood, less everyday stress, sustained, grounded energy. That
Yeah,
is
it's not
for me,
stimulating
that's
like
huge.
coffee or Red Bull kind of a thing. It's grounded energy, a calm energy that people are really not used to. They're like, oh my God, I'm awake and I'm energetic, but I'm calm. So it's not,
Yeah.
there's no crash involved in it. Again, there's no stimulation in that kind. You just have to, look what your dose is. For me, I only need 10 milligrams to choose 30
Yeah.
milligrams. So it would be 3 times as much for me. So you have to
Yeah. Yeah.
know
Yeah.
everybody has a different genetic.
It says heightened cognition, mental acuity, focus, deeper connection to self and others,
Oh,
and
yeah.
openness to life's possibility. Man, I mean,
Patience.
that's,
Patience is what it gave me. It's
I need some of that.
Patience is amazing. And I was never a patient person, and after taking this for especially a few years, and after a while, you really like your brain is recalibrated. You're nicer to people. You're more open. You're friendly. You hold doors open. You solve problems differently. I use it for flying. I don't know if you read in my bio, but I survived a big crash
I was going to
25
ask you
years
about
ago,
that. Yeah.
and I use
Can you
my
elaborate
product
on that?
to, yeah, I use my product to alleviate that pre-flight anxiety, and also during flight, the adrenaline rush that I get during turbulence. I
What was that experience like, Alex?
I I lived in Thailand for a few years. I worked as a storyboard artist there on a feature film, and I lived there with my ex girlfriend. And I decided to move to New York after my job was done. I switched tickets with a Chinese guy to get on a earlier flight, and I during landing, which was still 3,800 feet high up, and very very bad weather, thunderstorm. The plane, which was a Thai Airways Airbus A320, crashed into a rubber plantation and killed 101 people. And that was one of a few survivors. 45 people survived on my flight, and obviously changed my life. Also changed professions right after that. But I was hospitalized. I was in a wheelchair for 6 months, and I didn't know how to get back on an airplane after that, and it took me a while. And first flight I took was to New York City, and shortly after I opened up Sushi Samba, the restaurant. So I went from the storyboarding industry straight into bar and hospitality, which
Wow.
what I was already doing, after school in Germany, when I owned a bar. So didn't talk about that for a while because I was really screwed up in the head.
Of course.
And then I met, the guys from Spirits Mark One and Stetka Vodka, and they're like, "Hey, there's a new airline out. We want you to fly to Hard Rock Cafe and train the bartenders down there on our new recipes." And I'm like, "No way, I'm flying. I'm taking the train." And they're like, "No, it's this great new airline called JetBlue. They have the best pilots. They all flew military for 10 years, so you're in good hands." And I was like, "I just don't know how to get back on that flight." And that's when I started taking benzodiazepines, like Xanax, literally just like half a milligram or so. And it made a huge difference because 45 minutes before, I was at the gate, it would hit me like a sledgehammer, and give you this "I don't care" attitude. And what happens, I don't care if I die. Like that's what benzos do to you. They give you this
Wow.
like "I don't care" feeling. And I loved that. I was on a plane. If the flight was nice, above the clouds, sunny, I could even put my head on the window. I always have a window seat. And
Yeah.
then sometimes I would get turbulence, and that's when adrenaline kicks in, which is bigger than Xanax, and it would push all the meds out of my system. And I get so tense, and I almost get a heart attack because of anxiety. Not that I would freak out on the plane, but
Yeah.
if the turbulence was severe, I would like grab my seat like this, and the people next to me are like, "Hey, dude, flying is the safest thing in the world." And I'm like, "Okay, when we land, I'll tell you what happened to me."
Yeah.
So,
Don't tell them
so
that
like,
story when you're in the
so
air.
like, a lot of people actually want to hear that while they're in the air, believe it or not,
Wow.
because like enough people
Wow.
are sort of fascinated not only by the fact that you can survive something like this, but also that you
Yeah.
get back on a plane. For me, it's a big deal
Yeah.
every time I go on a plane, and I fly quite often, but I'm always nervous, right? And I've tried hypnosis, I've tried all kinds of things out there, and the only thing obviously is mind over body, but it's extremely difficult to do when you're at an airport and you kind of like need to focus on breathing. For me, that's
Yeah.
impossible. So I now I take two hard shoes, and they don't push out this anxiety. They don't push out the problems or whatever happened to me. They It lets me embrace them and work through them. Same as
Yeah.
like when you take the product, and you give it to your relatives, or you want to kind of make up with your mom you haven't spoken to in 12 years. This chew will actually do that. It will like
Amazing.
make you want to pick up the phone and like literally sort of solve all these issues in a human way,
That's
non-aggressive,
beautiful.
nothing like this. And that's what I love about that plant so much. And I take it for flying, but the plane accident was a big deal. I've seen a lot of horrible things. I've seen very horrible things and smelled a lot of horrible things. The smell is just as bad as the visuals, where every time I go to an airport and I smell coffee and kerosene, uh,
Yeah.
my nervous system kicks in and I start shaking and sweating cold sweats. And if I know that we have bad weather, like I recently flew to California to go to Santa Cruz to work in a chocolate factory,
Yeah.
and I was on one of these CRJ jets that just crashed, right?
Yep.
And I hate those things, long tiny needles, and they're really
Yep.
bad with turbulence. And and the pilot goes on and he's like, "We're going to have severe turbulence the entire flight." If I hear that while I'm sitting on my seat, it's game over for me. Everything that I tried to do before that, all the relaxation breathing, goes out the window, and I'm anticipating turbulence, and that's the worst thing that can happen to me. So, working with an empathogenic plant that can embrace that fear and work through it was a life-changing thing for me. And again, we give this to a lot of first responders and soldiers and veterans, and it really helps them not just unplug from all the pharma crap they put them on, but
Yep.
also to natural, let your brain be your brain without dysregulating anything being invasive and such. So yeah, plane crash that was a big deal, still is, you know.
What this what this cost sounds like to me is it sounds like MDMA without the stimulus, without like this extreme stimulation, like a
Yeah,
natural, healthy, euphoric MDMA.
people compare the plan to like a like MDMA alternative, but you can't really do that because MDMA works on different receptors, and MDMA also is not the healthiest thing for your brain to take it on a regular
Yeah,
basis.
not at all.
And a lot of people will disagree with me on that, but it is not something that creates new brain cells like psilocybin does or like Kana does. It destroys them, and so do most of the things out there from ketamine as well. It's an environmental toxin, but like it's also not something you should be taking on a daily basis. And the fact that obviously this whole psychedelic renaissance that we've been playing with for the last 5-6 years is a wonderful thing. But I've also attended all of the MAPS events, the one in Denver too, where we had indigenous people in the crowd, and says like, you have no business doing this, with our mushrooms. Those are our spirits. If you look at them as a white person, you destroy their energy, and I really respected that. And, most people are like, oh, let's take a mushroom that, is a penis envy mushroom. It's most psilocybin and like it's going to trip you out like crazy. And it's just like, obviously these people don't know why we take these things, besides being a medicine. This is something you can, use much more responsibly. And the indigenous people that were there, they were talking about, they're like, you have no business looking at this. You're using this in a wrong perspective. Plus, if you want to heal people, you have to be at least 50 years old, and you can't charge anything for it. So this is the number
Oh
one
boy,
no
there's a
on
lot of people
internet.
in Austin that can't hear that.
Exactly. And I work with a lot of these people. I work with
Yeah.
sanctuaries. I work with things. And obviously, people need to make a living. They need to sell their product. If I can afford it, I would do everything for free. But that's why we have that donation system. When we do these gut profiles. But yes,
So if you were somebody who wanted to have a breakthrough of some sorts, I mean, the percentage of people that therapy works for is roughly 12%, according to the research that I have seen. 12% is not a high number. That percentage goes up when they're using things like ketamine, MDMA. Yet still, like, are we using these for coping, or are we using these for true healing? It sort of seems like in that setting, it could be used for coping a large part of the time.
well,
So
don't forget
somebody who
that
wants to work, go ahead.
you kind of like frozen right there. So
Oh, I'm sorry. And so for
no, I
somebody
heard you.
who's
I heard you. I
looking,
heard you. No, I
okay,
say it's a great temporary device to work for post-traumatic stress, but to navigate everyday anxiety and depression and fear and geopolitical messes that we're in right now, it's not a solution to take I mean, like, except microdoses of psilocybin, But when it comes to ketamine or MDMA, it is invasive and it's addictive. I work with substances that are not, and there's no tolerance buildup either. All these other substances, there is a tolerance buildup. So
yeah,
we did this great comparative chart where we said, like, hey, this is my product, this is what it does, this is all the psychedelics out there, and we're the psychedelic adjacent product, if you will,
yeah,
because we're not psychotropic, right? We're psychoactive, like coffee,
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a big difference. But when people say like, yes, MDMA and ketamine work for me, it's a great thing. But also, people charge $20,000-$30,000 for these therapies. To me, it's ridiculous. Again, we live in a country, we live in the most capitalistic country in the entire world. To me, again, it's a big no-no to, like, if you want to heal, if you want to cure someone, keep the cost to a minimum, right? And don't make such a big fuss about it, because, like, obviously you're on the radar. For me, people know I'm not a practitioner. I'm just someone who knows a lot about a lot of different things, and I can provide you with information. Talk to your doctor. He can make that decision. I'm never making medical decisions. So, this is something that is very important to know. But
amazing.
when it comes to therapies out there, this whole renaissance and people getting more aware, and I'm a big fan of obviously ayahuasca. It's also changed my life multiple times. But this is the mother out there. This is the most ancient thing. If you're lost, if you need advice, you take aya. And every indigenous person knows that. So we have yet a lot to learn about indigenous wisdom, because it's been talked about by their generations as a never-ending chain of wisdom, and we're not in it. We're in Western medicine. We don't believe in spirits. We don't believe in energies. That there's some energetic healers and light and frequency and vibration and sound healing. It's all real, but people still see this as some esoteric stuff.
Yeah.
If I had the choice to dedicate my life all over again to what I would do in order to heal people, I would definitely focus on light. We're made out of light.
I
So like
agree.
this is the essence of everything. I'm just a chemist. I'm I'm
Yeah.
I'm basically just telling you how your body works with this light. And if you speak to someone nicely, they feel great. If you tell someone you're an asshole or I hate you, obviously something happens to this energy because we make out of a lot of water, and that water reacts. Water has memory, and it comes in 4 phases, not just 3. It's also great book. One of my favorite books, The Fourth Phase of Water. And it's really, really,
I haven't heard of that.
you got to read this book.
Excellent.
Biophotons for healing, things like this. But right now, I think we're more about what can I do in order to biohack my body the best way? And then you have,
Yeah.
no offense, idiots out there that don't want to die. They want to live forever. They want to
Oh my gosh,
live,
Brian
live.
Johnson. I'll
I'm
say
not
it.
talking about people, I'm not naming any
I'll,
people, but there's
I'll
people out
say
there
it.
that sell these supplements for hundreds of dollars to
I
say
know.
this is a general supplement that will make you healthy. It's full of shit. I'm sorry. You
Yeah.
can't generalize and universalize ingredients to be the same effects that you might do because you spent the entire life on yourself and you've been the biggest
Yeah.
narcissist on the entire planet because you want to live 50 years longer. The people who live
Doesn't make
to be 150 are still, they might be alive right now without knowing, right? Especially
yeah.
now with CRISPR. I have a lot of friends, like the Odin, for instance. They do some amazing things with genetic engineering. These guys, I mean, there's things that we can wipe out. There's things that we can do, but obviously it's not legal yet on the germ line. We can't do this on humans, but I'm sure the Chinese have already done this for the last 20 years. So like, there's things out there we need to see. Like, there's a circle of life. Without the circle
Yeah.
of life, we wouldn't have any adaptation. We wouldn't have any traits. We wouldn't have anything else, or any wisdom. Like, we need to die. And then other people are like, oh, I disagree with you. We don't need to die. But I'm saying there's a reason for things that are going on, and it might be programmed by aliens, or like
Yeah.
it might be Santa Claus or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, the thing is, it's a beautiful thing, and people embrace death, and there's a reason why
Yeah.
they do that and have always done that, from the Egyptians to all the way back to Göbekli Tepe and the Peruvians, and the ones that came before them. They had more knowledge than us. They still
Hmm.
have more knowledge than us. They have had knowledge about things that are completely lost: gravity, energy, afterlife. So for me to go into this philosophical thing, that's a whole different other podcast. But
Do you
it's
do you think about afterlife often? I know we're coming up on time, but I've got to know. Do you think about afterlife often?
I do. I work with a lot of
Yeah.
Egyptian people. I work with the blue lotus a lot, which is a great
Okay.
extract from Egypt, from a water lily. And I do a lot of immersive events called Sex, Death, and the Blue Lotus, which is heavily Egyptian oriented, about the afterlife and about what Thoth, the big alchemist of his time, used in his pharmacy, if you will, in order to open your pineal gland and connect to the universe
Hmm.
and the cosmic ether out there. I've done it myself by taking ayahuasca. I've done it myself by taking psychedelics. So, DMT, is obviously is the substance in ayahuasca. But, there's so much more to it, and people are just shit scared of the unknown,
Yeah.
to realize that we're more than just 5 senses, that we're more than just biological tissue. And having lost relatives, including my dad, to cancer, and holding his hand on his last breath, and what happened after he passed away, that I just looked upon his body and saw this is just biological matter, and I didn't feel anything from it right
Yeah.
after he passed away because I knew there was something more, right?
Yeah.
I've seen things in my life, smelled dead people and ghosts, from my plane crash, not just when I dream, but like sometimes in the middle of the stairs, or, that I can explain, where I said,
Yeah.
there's so many things that we don't know about. And I'm not the one to speculate about it, but I've worked with
Yeah.
enough indigenous people to know that I respect them more than any high-end scientist or billionaire on the planet that has some tech going on. I mean, every time I present something or make a formulation, I bring it back to the indigenous people and have them try it.
Wow.
Right? And
Very
they
cool.
energetically approve upon it, and that's what we did with the Khoi and the Bushmen in Namibia as well. I gave them Ka, and they've had epiphanies. You know, in their sleep, they woke up the next day and they're like, "Oh my God, our forefathers came to us," and it's amazing to see what happens. You know, and that's what keeps me going, is that I possess a specific amount of skill when it comes to formulating ingredients and flavors and scents that I can make a product for you that you have been dreaming about selling or taking personally, or for recreational purposes. That is completely 100% bulletproof,
Yeah.
energetically aligned, and obviously ethically sourced as well. That's what I can promise you. And it's the same for giving advice today on the holy grail for bodybuilders and athletes, to say, like, this is what you need to eat in the morning, this is during workout,
Yeah.
this is before bedtime, and you will see a magical change without you having to buy 400 different products that are invasive to your hormones or anything. It's microbial and it's diet, and those are, I have to always come back to these things.
Then let me ask you the last topic of conversation we'll have here. You're perfect, and I know I know it's dependent on so many um, factors in terms of our microbes. Um, can you identify or share with us something that within the bodybuilders you have worked with, or fitness enthusiasts you have worked
Yep.
with, that almost everyone is getting wrong, or
Yep.
that's just being missed so widely?
As I said before, it's the probiotic and prebiotic diet. While you're
Yeah.
working out, you have to focus on prebiotics like asparagus, garlic, bananas, oats, resistant starches, cooked cooled rices, green bananas, potatoes, even potato starch, teaspoons. Incorporate fermented foods. It's what a lot of people are not doing either: yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir. And then don't overtrain. Also polyphenol-rich foods, matcha, berries, dark chocolate, and then obviously beta glucans from mushrooms. I have my favorite mushrooms out there. One of them
Yeah.
I showed you already before, but it's, if you know how muscle synthesis works, if you talk about recovery and sleep, I have like an AM pre-workout, doing workout, sort of like a thing for you that I can mention here, or we can post it, or we
Yeah,
can
please.
quickly talk about it now, or I know we're
Yeah,
already at
might as well
90,
quickly
90
talk about it
minutes or
now.
so, but I know it's been already 90 minutes.
It
Um,
has been. It has been. If you prefer to just post it, we can definitely do
Time
that here
flies
in the
when you're having
podcast.
fun, right? No,
I
I'd say,
know.
like, the hormonal dysregulation part is definitely something that most people get wrong, from testosterone, insulin, cortisol, certain growth factors, muscle growth, and metabolism. That's what they get wrong, because they assume that you tell them something, put it in your body, you're going to boost certain amounts of systems, which might be true for some, which might not be true for others, because they're lacking the gut to deal with these metabolites. So when it comes to the heroes out there, it's always the same three strains of biotic, which is Akkermansia, Lactobacillus plantarum, and Bifidolongum, right? So it's fructooligosaccharides from chicory and onions, garlic, asparagus. You have plant-based lactobacilli that come from kimchi and sourdough and natto, or fermented pickles or something. I have a really nice list for you that I can sing. And then obviously you need to take care of your sleep. So chamomile tea for sleep, gut-brain bacteria like Bifidolongum probiotics before bedtime. That's one of the most important things. And then just general lifestyle things. So in the AM, you should be doing probiotics on an empty stomach with warm water and lemon juice, just to stimulate your absorption as well. And then the pre-workout meal should be 2 hours before workout, with additional boost of like a raw potato starch, 30 minutes before, so that'll boost what you had for the pre-workout meal
Mhm.
even more. Starches like oats, white beans, cooled potatoes, green bananas, they actually provide for steady release of glucose, so you don't get depleted too quickly and you don't get any spikes. Because a lot of people are complaining about having these energy spikes, or but they don't have better energy reserves for high intensity training. And that is what makes all the difference out there. You have to do a gut profile first, which is most of it a pain in the ass for people like, what, I have to test my stool in order to know how I can build my muscle. But yes, you do. You have to get this before you can put anything else in your body, because if you put too much hormone in your body and you don't have the microbes to basically regulate them, then you're screwed, or it doesn't work, obviously, because the hormonal dysregulation is what gets everybody, and that's crucial for muscle growth. Then during the workout, you should be having tons of electrolytes. And for that, I mean coconut water, but not the stuff that you can sell in the carton. I'm talking about, go to, again, Whole Foods has coconuts again. They used to be $10 a pop. Now they're like $3.99, which gives you half a liter of untouched, sterile coconut water, which tastes great and has more electrolytes than anything else. It's twice as much potassium as banana. So it's pretty a no-brainer to drink coconut water, not juice, during workout. And I'm not talking about the stuff that is filled with citric acid that's sold for $5-6 in the supermarket.
Yeah.
Because that used to be a trend where Coca-Cola and Pepsi bought up all the coconuts from Thailand and Brazil, and ruined everything, for the coconut.
Go figure.
I used to be able to go to Chinatown and get a 9-pack of coconuts in a big box with a handle on it for $10.
Yeah.
And look now, they're like $4 a pop. Post-workout, high protein meals, whey isolate and banana and oats for recovery again. Then the evening routine should be probiotic and prebiotic dinner, steamed veggies, quinoa, fish, sauerkraut, miso soup. And then sleep support is another important one. And if you follow those things, again, magical things will happen to you. But in addition, you would have to do that gut profile, because if you think you can eat lots of meat, but you're not allowed to have meat at all because you've overgrown with bacteroides and things that usually come from processed foods, you're screwed and you get really sick. Yeah. You go into organ failure, you go into liver issues and kidney disease issues, heart inflammation, because once your gut lining is compromised, because the third of your diet should be fiber, right? So that's what bacteria mostly thrive on, is this fiber, and they convert it like, acetic acid or what's called short chain fatty acids. And these are making sure that the gelatinous appearance of your gut lining stays gelatinous. And it's sort of like the guy with a velvet rope that only lets the important things into your bloodstream, right? Okay. But if your gut lining is compromised, and if you don't get enough fiber, these bacteria start eating up the gut lining, mushy stuff, and then the door becomes open, the velvet rope becomes wide open, and you basically, and then you let bacteria into your bloodstream and 17 toxins that they produce that are not supposed to be in there, and they go everywhere. And the doctor will know that you have issues, but he doesn't know why you have an issue because he never looks at the gut. I can tell you, oh my God, you're overgrown by, 20,000% of this. We have to curb this by strain-specific probiotics. You can buy them too. They're sometimes correctly recommended by these gut labs for like $30 a month or so. Also a good investment to do. And you can accelerate things besides that diet for that, but again, everything that has to do with working out, with athleticism, with bodybuilding, and focusing on certain aspects of your body, they always have to be seen as a whole in balance with everything else that's going on, and the gut will provide that for you. So I highly recommend doing that gut. Officially, I'm more than welcome to work with everyone watching this to spider web it together for you on a really beautiful 2-page document where you can see it black on white what's going on with you and how you can improve yourself. And then you can make recommendations saying like, oh my God, now I'm going to take this to a completely different level.
Alex, you are an absolute wealth of knowledge. I knew that this podcast would be Fantastic. Usually I schedule people for about 40 to 50 minutes, but I was like, man, I'm gonna talk to this guy as long as I possibly can. So man, thank you so much for taking time out. I'm going to have your product here linked in the bio. I'm going to have your Instagram linked here down below as well. But man, just thank you so much. Thank you for being you. Thank you for spreading your message, and thank you for constantly increasing your skill set, because the world's a better place because of you. Okay.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Absolutely, man. We'll be chatting soon. Elite Coaching Academy podcast. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.